Welcome to another episode of Conversations with the County Executive. Today we're talking the county economy. Joining us is Dennis Davin. Dennis was the first Director of Economic Development under the Fitzgerald administration. A few years later, he left and became the Secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Community Economic Development, and today he's with JLL Pittsburgh. And of course, we have County Executive Rich Fitzgerald.
Well, it's good to be here. Dennis, thank you for being here. And I think we start back when I ran 12 years ago. Really what drove me to run was to keep our young people here. The economics of Pittsburgh had become a place where when industry collapsed many years ago, we hadn't really recovered it and we were losing young people. And economics was, I think, the driver of where we were. Get more jobs here, grow our economy, get the unemployment rate down. And obviously when you were the economic development director, you did such a good job during basically the first third of my 12-year tenure that Governor Wolf then decided to make you his secretary for the entire state. You did a great job there as well. So I'm very proud of the fact that right now young people can find jobs. We have over 50,000 jobs right now that are unfilled, which we got to work on, and skills and things like that. Our unemployment rate is 3.3%. The lowest it's been in over half a century. And again, these are some things that we've all worked on together, the level of partnership. And, so I'm glad that you're here today to continue that work and talk about some of those things.
Thanks, Rich. I appreciate it. And, when we talk about that, years ago when you and I talked about let's try to keep our young people here, we had skin in the game. Literally, I have 3 kids. I'm not up to where you are. But, kids that we wanted to be able to have opportunities to stay here and to grow here. And the fact of the matter, is that we have these universities that are producing this incredible amount of talent. And we want to give that talent every reason, not all of them, but give as many as we can, every reason to want to be right here in the city of Pittsburgh, in Allegheny County, and grow develop their lives and things like that right here. And to be honest with you, I think we're in a pretty good position right now, coming out of COVID. COVID, threw a monkey wrench into everything. I got a chance to see that from the state level in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Erie and Allentown and a variety of different places. But I think we have a lot of the things in place right now to really start to see some boom levels.
I also think, I agree with you, and I think also we're looking good in the emerging industries that are growing, the future. We know in the past, some of the industries, heavy manufacturing was going to change and going to lose employment. But the fact that there's over 100 robotics companies here, we're one of the top robotics areas in the country, along with Boston and the Bay Area. And when you compare us to those two places, we're so much more affordable. So companies want to grow here, they want to get folks here. We have over 45,000 people working in that industry. We've had over $3 billion worth of venture capital just in that one industry over the last 10 years. Now we also see life sciences moving in the same direction. Over 56 companies have grown there. We've seen over $1 billion again in venture capital there. So these are areas that are just really beginning with employment and economic growth in this region. And you can certainly see it in neighborhoods like the Strip District, Lawrenceville, East Liberty, places that 10 years ago were very difficult to develop. And when you were there and developers would come to you, they'd want tax breaks, they'd want TIFs, LERTAs, RCAPs, anything that was there. Now in these areas over the last number of years, they just want to build. Right. They don't really ask for those type of tax breaks. So we do see the future of diversification of industries, whether you want to do eds and meds or energy or robotics or all these emerging industries. I think Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh region is really in a good place.
I think you're absolutely right, Rich. I think what's happened is that you look at Pittsburgh, and I think when some of us came out of college, came out of high school, came out of college, I always tell the story where going into college or going into high school, my brother had friends that were working in the steel industry. By the time I graduated from high school, the steel industry was almost collapsed. So that happened. We relied in the Pittsburgh region on one industry. So we got to the point where we really had to realize that we had to make changes and do a lot of different things. One of the things you focused on infrastructure and putting the infrastructure in place to make sure that we had a diverse set of industries. Pennsylvania in 2018 or 19, for the first time ever, was considered, I think it was The Economist, as the most diverse state in the country, meaning Texas. We never thought we'd get there. Pittsburgh is right there in the sweet spot. We have so many different types of industries, which is what we need. So we rely on heavy manufacturing. We still have manufacturing here right now. We have light industrial, we have eds, we have meds, but we're not focusing on just one or the other. We want everything, and to take advantage of the talent that we have right now and to bring in more jobs, more investment into the area. And to your credit, I think the infrastructure play was probably one of the most important things that we've done in addition to workforce development. And when I look at it, and again, I've had the opportunity to look from a statewide level at various places. You point to Pittsburgh, and you just need to go to the union shops that are here right now, and they are better, nicer, more welcoming. They're larger than any I've seen around the state. Whether it's electrical workers, whether it's carpenters, whether it's steam fitters. And it's because we put so much emphasis on that to try to get our young people the skills that they need to fill the 50,000 jobs that you're talking about. So we're well on our way. We need to keep plugging away. We need to keep working.
Yeah, and I think that's that diversity, because back in the day when we were so tied into steel and other heavy manufacturing, when that collapsed, we were left without other options. Now the fact that we're in so many different industries and doing well in all of them puts us in a good place. You mentioned our building trades. They've been great partners. And one of the key has been the partnership we've had with the corporate community, with our developers, with our universities, you mentioned, with the building trades. And we've had so much new construction over these last decade. 21,000 new parcels built, over $10 billion worth of new construction, which again, not only puts people to work, puts things back on the tax rolls, allows us to keep taxes in a low place, and it moves it in a very, very good direction. And also, we still have this affordability aspect, which is, I mentioned before. We've seen housing prices, values go up. When I came into office, the median sale price was around $100,000. It's now about $250,000. So if you've owned that house for 10 years, you've seen your asset grow, which is a good thing. But we're still one of the most affordable when it comes to how much money you're making your wages versus how much you're paying. In fact, the top 16 metro areas that are similar to us, we're number one, the most affordable place to live if you've got, again, the average job that's here. We still need to work on affordable housing, and we've invested a lot of money, and you did when you were economic development director. We put over $20 million a year into affordable housing. But these are the type of things that I think we're really working on, and we want to continue to work on in the years to come. And really, when we think about the economy and where Pittsburgh is, it is always about the future. So we're always investing in futuristic industries that are growing. And we talked about, again, robotics and therapeutics and life sciences and artificial intelligence. And having these partnerships with Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh, UPMC Enterprises, all these type of, again, that are investing in the future puts us in a really good place.
It really does. And again, I go back to infrastructure and the need to make sure that we keep up with that. So for example, you mentioned life sciences before. And life sciences is Pittsburgh has such an opportunity. We bring in so much NIH money through the University of Pittsburgh does a great job of bringing that in to position Pittsburgh as one of the top 3 or 4 communities that bring in that much federal money. So all this research is going on here. We need to continue to keep that research here and really to build out those companies that are spitting out of that research through UPMC Enterprises and others. So I think part of it is that we have challenges all the time, and part of it is to make sure that we keep up with that. So we put money into, and we work with the county or the state to make sure that they're funding things like wet lab space, and they're funding other infrastructure projects that helps us to keep more of that money, those jobs, those companies here in the city of Pittsburgh. I absolutely agree. I think we have a great opportunity to do that, but it is always a challenge here.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those things, the NIH funding, over $700 million, we've got $700 billion in NIH funding that we've been able to get. And these are the type of things that we just grow jobs with. And you mentioned, UPMC, but also Pitt Med and all the things they're doing with advanced therapeutics. the McGee Women Research Institute, which is one of the top women's health research institutes in the country, number one or number two. These are the type of things, again, that we continue to invest in. You see things like Hazelwood Green that's coming about, the investment that the philanthropic community and our universities are investing again in these new emerging technologies is really going to put us in a really good place. And the other thing we really haven't talked about that I think is also starting to grow big is what's happening at the airport around Neighborhood 91, the $1 billion enterprise for that. The cargo industry that we put ourselves in a very, very competitive situation with all these kind of emerging ways in which retail operates, the Amazons and the Walmarts and the folks that are doing logistics and distribution and warehouse jobs. Again, these are great jobs and folks can earn a living. And what's happening in that corridor as well as other parts of the region puts us in a good place.
I think absolutely. I mean, it's one of our biggest economic generators. We realized that a long time ago that the airport, we really need to take advantage of this airport. The fact that now you have a new airport that's being built, we probably want to talk about that, is just absolutely incredible. You talked about Neighborhood 91. So part of the things that you're seeing, especially with the President's Infrastructure Act and also with the reshoring and things like that, the CHIPS Act and all that, we have an opportunity now, better opportunity now than ever before to look at all this reshoring because of what happened during COVID, and the fact that we didn't have the supply chain set up. Neighborhood 91, you have additive manufacturing, but not additive manufacturing from soup to nuts. So we have the whole supply chain. And that's just one example of what can happen. And that's really because of, the vision that you, Christina, and others have in this region that we need to do things like that. And don't be fooled that, we don't want anybody to be fooled that, there's a lot of competition out there in other areas, a lot of smart people in other areas. Nobody's smart as Pittsburgh. But, when companies are looking at opportunities to grow, or companies are looking at opportunities to go somewhere and relocate, they're going to look at a number of different things. And a lot of people think that they only focus on incentives, from the state, from the county, from the city or whatever. And that is, it's a part, but it's not the real driver. The real driver is talent, it's affordability, it's tax structure, and things like that companies will look at. And if those things are in place, which we have that in place right here, you talked about affordability. That is so huge right now. You look at things that have happened around the country with, California shedding some jobs, some of those jobs going to Texas. People going to Texas, all of a sudden, they're buying something a little bit less expensive, but their taxes are going up, and all of a sudden, they can't find anything because it's just there's so much activity going on down there, and they're living with 110-degree heat. So who wants that? So there are a lot of opportunities, and we have to do things. Think like you and Christine and the others have done at the airport area. Think like that, but for a variety of other industries. And I think we're well on the way to getting.
Well, what they've done out there, what Christine and her team did, and you were part of, obviously bringing her here when you were economic development and on the board out there. The Neighborhood 91 is just one thing. The fact that they have their own microgrid, power their own operations using solar panels as well as the natural gas that we have there. So we're not relying on the grid, and when there are storms and things that knock power out, we've seen other airports that go down for 24, 36 hours. It's an economic incentive that goes the other way. We've also seen more flights. When she came in, we were down to like 36 cities you could get to directly. We've almost doubled that. And again, it's a growing thing on both sides. Companies want to be where they can get to. Well, then they come here. Now we can get more flights because there's more people using the service. So it's a growing operation. We mentioned cargo. Again, we can really outperform the big major areas like the New Yorks, the Chicagos, and the LAs because of the time that it takes companies to get their materials off of the plane, onto a truck, and out to their ultimate customer. We do it so much faster than everybody else, so we're able to pick up more and more of that business. And you mentioned the new modernization, the $1.5 billion of putting things in place, but it's also using the airport to train new workers, get more people into the trades, people that hadn't traditionally been in the trades, people of color, women, and having child care out there as well. That she's creating a child care center. In fact, the White House came here with the Secretary of Transportation, along with the Secretary of Labor, to highlight that Pittsburgh International Airport, Allegheny County, is leading the way in how to do those things. You mentioned affordability. That's a huge issue, because when these big companies or these small companies want to attract talent, people can look and see, what kind of a house can I have? What kind of a neighborhood can I have? What kind of quality of life can I have? And the fact that over 60% of our workers are paying less than 20% of their money goes to rent or their mortgage, you have a lot more disposable income. You can live a little more of a free life than you can, say, in the Bay Area or in Boston or New York or some of the wonderful cities, or Texas, but they're a little more costly. So, we've seen during our period of this decade, we've seen the average wages go up about 33%, while inflation at the time was only going up 29%. So the wages have outpaced inflation for the jobs that we've seen grow here in this region.
Right, and you mentioned, affordability is a big one. Cargo, though, just to kind of touch on that for a minute, things are so different right now. You look at Amazon, and they change their model. It seems like every 6 months they do something differently in terms of what they want to do. Their model of how they're moving goods around to different areas, and then COVID threw a monkey wrench in everything, blew everything up. So now companies are thinking differently. 10, 20, 30 years ago, these logistics companies, they were set, and if you had to wait 30 days for a widget to get from point A to Pittsburgh, you had to wait, and now it's not that way. Now there are opportunities to do things like Neighborhood 91, like to have your supply chain all neat and tidy, within a short period of time. If we're manufacturing things here, there's no reason. If we're manufacturing components, if we're manufacturing some things from raw materials like baking steel, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to put that in a finished product here too. And I think we have all the components to be able to do that.
And we also see, of course, the biggest project that was here, not in Allegheny County, but the Shell cracker plant, the biggest project in the entire state over the last 70 years. So that was a huge impact. And again, as manufacturing, as you mentioned, we still make things, and we make things across the board: plastics, steel, aluminum, cement. We make a lot of different components of what's going on, and robotics certainly feeds into that. But the other thing I think you mentioned is, for the first time, that when the census came out, a couple of years ago, that we're growing. But not only that we're growing population for the first time since the 1960s, but we're growing with young people. That our young population grew by over 20%, while the nation was growing about 11%. So we actually doubled the growth of young adults during that period of time. And it's also a more diverse population ethnically. We see a huge, almost 80% increase in our Hispanic population, almost an 80% increase in our Asian American population, and over 100% increase in our mixed race population. So people can feel comfortable coming here to get a job, coming here to start a business, coming here to invest, because there's a population now that is much more welcoming, and again, more welcoming economically, culturally, and every other way, so that we can continue to draw people and keep the people here that you and I talked about we wanted to do from day one.
That's it. And I think we're going to get into a nice position here in the Pittsburgh region of being able to really draw all the people. Again, COVID, kind of put a monkey wrench into a lot of different things that were going on. But as we come out of COVID, as we're moving along, we have a great opportunity right now with our welcoming nature, with the affordability, with the jobs that are available right now, with industries wanting to come to this area, and we have a lot of great support from the state that they're looking at really being aggressive in terms of going after jobs and things like that. So we're in a real sweet spot, I think. Young people, older people, all ages, they have opportunities right now like we never had before. There's a lot of remote work. A lot of us think that that's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. There's going to still be a need for people to be in the office, from whatever that ends up being. But the bottom line is, people have opportunities. They have choices. And the thing about it is, we need to make sure Pittsburgh and Allegheny County is a place that people want to be, for all the reasons that you said. not just affordability, but everything else you can do here, and how you can be comfortable here in Allegheny County. And I think, you guys have done a great job of marketing that, putting out the word, letting people understand that and know that about Allegheny County. We just need to keep that up.
Yeah, and I think the final thing is our secret sauce is the partnership. The fact that we work together, and the state invested over $200 million in RCAP money to help again become part of a solution, not the only part, but a part of growth and economics. You mentioned the universities, they've become tremendous partners. Our corporate community, from our old industrial institutions, the PPGs and the PNCs and the US Steels and the UPMCs, along with the newer, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Apples, the Amazons. So you see all of that coming together, the tech with the more traditional industries, again, all working together. And levels of government. You see the municipalities working with the county, working with the state, working with our friends at the federal government. And I think the federal government is, we're just kind of scratching the surface of the infrastructure bill, the IRA bill, the CHIPS and Science bill, all this legislation that was passed in the last year or so that's investing in futuristic infrastructure technologies. We're sitting in a really, really good spot. So I think it puts us in a good spot. The other thing we haven't talked a lot about is energy. We mentioned Shell briefly, but we are a green, sustainable technology energy place to be, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's geothermal, and now the emerging thing of hydrogen. We know hydrogen is going to be a big fuel source for the aviation industry, for buildings, for power generation, et cetera. And again, because of some of the technology that we've been a part of and be ahead of, I see that as also a big futuristic opportunity for jobs and economic growth in this entire region.
Tremendous opportunity. You talked about hydrogen, and hydrogen is really something, and that is there. We're scratching the surface with respect to that. The opportunities that are there, and the types of hydrogen that are being developed, and looking at a hydrogen hub here in the Pittsburgh region, and looking at renewables. Looking at other renewables that we have the opportunity to develop here, to build out here. There's just a lot that's going on. Again, some of us that are a little older, like you and I, have to look back 100, 200 years or whatever, that this was really, the energy was the focus of the Pittsburgh region. When you look at coal, when you look at oil, when you look at natural gas and a variety of other things, nuclear, so we're in that next level right now, and we really have an opportunity to take advantage of that. And we have smart people. We're developing the right type of talent to want to do that. But it's also kind of like it's in our DNA in terms of Pittsburghers want to always make sure that we're ahead of the game in terms of where we're going. We had an issue, and it was tough coming out of the steel industry kind of reigning supreme here in Pittsburgh. But we learned how to deal with that. We learned how to diversify. And we're in a great position right now to really take advantage of that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you not only for being here today and talking about this, but really for being here when we started a lot of this in my administration. You continue to be a great partner with us in the state. And I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh, whether they know who you are or not, and maybe you remember me, but that their kids are here. That when again, I go back a decade and a half or so ago, people were resigned to the fact that when their kids grew up here, they were probably going to leave. They were going to go to Denver or Charlotte or DC or Boston. Now they know their kids can stay here. And that's such a powerful, powerful emotional hold that we all have about Western Pennsylvania, because whether you live in Pittsburgh or you left Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh never leaves you. Yeah. And now you get a chance to stay here, and you've been a big part of that. So thank you.
Well, Rich, I want to thank you for everything that you've done, the work that you've done, the fact that you've reached across the aisle, the fact that you've reached out across county lines to other places, that you have a great reputation, and I think it's because you work so hard. Hardest working guy I've ever been around. I really do mean that. So thank you for doing that.
It's been a labor of love. I've loved it. I've loved the job. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Conversations with the County Executive. Please come back again for future episodes, and for any information about everything that the county is and will be doing, visit AlleghenyCounty.us.